On the 24th of February in 1815, the pharaoh sailed into Marseille. A man from the shore hastily boarded a boat, making his way toward the ship. A young man, approximately 20 years old, peered over the side, displaying a demeanor that exuded a fearlessness typically associated with the captain. This man, later identified as Edmond Dantes, the first officer aboard Morel's ship, seemed to take command effortlessly. The ship had encountered a tragic event near Civitavecchia, resulting in the loss of their valiant Captain Leclerc. After swiftly giving orders to his crew, the young man turned to Morel, acknowledging that despite the unfortunate incident, the cargo was safe. Acknowledging Danglars, who managed the trade affairs, Morel swiftly boarded the ship, meeting Danglars, a man around 25 years old, who didn't seem to be popular among the ship's crew. Danglars expressed condolences for the loss of Captain Leclerc and asserted that youthful confidence, much like that displayed by Dantes, could make for a capable captain. However, the ship's stop at Elba, following the captain's orders, resulted in a day-and-a-half loss of time, a decision Morel regretted. There had been no issues with the ship, as Dantes confirmed that their stop at Elba was more for leisure than work. When called over by Morel, Dantes ensured the ship's readiness and offered assistance, although there was confusion about the reasons behind their stop at Elba, for which Dantes had no clear explanation. He had received a letter meant for Marshal Bertram, evoking Morel's curiosity about Napoleon's well-being, but without divulging the letter's contents. Morel cautioned Dantes against sharing the details about the letter and Napoleon's inquiries, warning that it might lead to trouble. Upon confirming his freedom, Dantes expressed gratitude for Morel's invitation to dinner but needed to visit his father first before considering the dinner engagement. In Marseille, Dantes remembered that he needed to see another person, Mercedes. She had visited him thrice, seeking news about the pharaoh, and had promised to marry him, which filled him with joy. Grateful for the news, Morel encouraged Dantes to hurry to meet his father, suggesting that news of his impending marriage was delightful. Dantes sought permission from Morel to leave the ship for 14 days for his wedding and a subsequent visit to Paris, which Morel granted, reminding him to return within a month as the pharaoh couldn't sail without its captain. Overjoyed at the prospect of becoming captain, Dantes expressed his gratitude and excitement before setting off to see his father and Mercedes. Declining Morel's offer to accompany him to the shore, Dantes opted to stay back to work alongside Danglars. Though their relationship was strained, Morel acknowledged that Danglars worked efficiently, despite their differences. In another part of Marseille, Dantes arrived at a modest house where his father resided. His father, pleased to see him, welcomed him warmly, eager to hear about his adventures. However, Dantes had sad news to share about Captain Leclerc's passing, but joyfully revealed that he was now the captain of the pharaoh. He expressed his plans to earn well and improve their living conditions. Concerned about his father's well-being, Dantes noticed the lack of food and drink at home and offered his money, but his father insisted that he didn't need all of it. In the streets, Cataris, the neighbor, greeted Edmond Dantes, who concealed his true emotions. Cataris expressed curiosity about Edmond's newfound wealth, eyeing the money on the table. Edmund clarified that it was his father's money, offering to lend some if needed. Cataris seemed interested and mentioned his hope to become the next captain of the Pharaoh, bidding farewell to Edmund as he left to visit someone else in town. At home, Cataris, sharing words with Dongla, expressed aspirations to captain the Pharaoh. He bid Edmund goodbye, hinting about Edmund's future marriage to Mercedes. Edmund defended Mercedes' character and left to meet her. Meanwhile, Cataris and Dongla schemed to confront Edmund at La Reserve, expecting him to visit there. Switching scenes, Mercedes, a young girl with striking features, awaited Edmund under a tree at a nearby house. Upon his arrival, they shared a joyful reunion, basking in the Marseille sunshine. As they walked past La Reserve, Cataris attempted to engage Edmund, who was preoccupied with thoughts of Mercedes and their impending wedding. Dongla inferred Edmund's secret journey to Paris, hinting at a letter intended for Marshal Betois. Dongla contemplated this to himself, noting the significance of Edmund's Paris trip. In the midst of a joyous moment, Cataris pondered the power of a pen and the destruction it could cause. Meanwhile, Dongla devised a malicious plan, intending to frame Edmund, Dantes. Dongla schemed to send a letter to a government officer, alleging that Edmund was working for Napoleon and aiming to reinstate him as the ruler of France. Writing with his left hand, Dongla composed a deceitful message, detailing how Edmund carried a letter for Napoleon's followers in Paris, planting the letter in Edmund's belongings. Satisfied with his plan, Dongla shared the letter with Cataris, who expressed discomfort with the scheme but acknowledged its effectiveness. Meanwhile, preparations for the wedding feast were underway at La Reserve, attended by Pharaoh's crew and Dante's friends. As the guests prepared to head to the church, chaos erupted when an officer accompanied by soldiers barged in, demanding Edmund's presence and questioning his identity. Edmund calmly acknowledged himself, puzzled by the sudden intrusion. Upon his sudden detainment, Edmund Dantes reassured his bride, Mercedes, and bid farewell to her, urging her not to be afraid and promising that they would soon meet again. He was then taken to face the judge, where the accusations against him unfurled. The judge, Villefort, began his interrogation, questioning Dantes about his identity and potential connections to Napoleon. Dantes, visibly distressed, expressed his innocence, affirming his dedication to his father, his employer Morel, and, above all, to Mercedes. He refuted any association with Napoleon and proclaimed his lack of interest in matters of power, emphasizing his love for his family and his betrothed. Villefort probed further, inquiring about potential enemies. Dantes, acknowledging his young age and modest status, denied having significant enemies, expressing uncertainty about anyone envying his apparent luck. When presented with a letter, Dantes was unable to recognize the handwriting but acknowledged the letter as a tool of his unknown adversary, denying the truthfulness of its contents regarding Captain Leclerc's illness. In this distressing turn of events, Dantes vehemently denied the accusations leveled against him, standing firm in his loyalty and innocence, despite the brewing storm of suspicion and uncertainty. On the third day of his illness, Captain Leclerc entrusted Edmond Dantes with a vital task before his death. He implored Dantes to promise that after his demise, Dantes would inherit the captaincy and deliver a letter to Marshal Bertrand in Elba. Leclerc's dying wish was a commanding order, and Dantes honored it by traveling to Elba alone, fulfilling Leclerc's request to deliver the letter to Marshal Bertrand and subsequently receiving another letter destined for a person in Paris. Afterward, he returned to Marseille, visited Mercedes, prepared for his wedding, and intended to depart for Paris the following day. Villefort, the judge, sought the letter brought from Elba by Dantes, which Dantes claimed had been taken by the soldiers along with other letters. As Dantes readied to leave, Villefort stopped him, inquiring about the name and address on the letter from Elba. Dantes replied with the name Noirtier and the Paris address Rue de Héron. Villefort, a staunch supporter of the king, expressed ignorance of individuals aiming to undermine the monarchy, leaving Dantes increasingly fearful and apprehensive. When Villefort proposed reading the letter, Dantes panicked internally, fearful of the potential revelation of his real identity and the connection between Noirtier and his father. He recognized the danger that could befall him if Villefort deciphered the letter's contents, and his anxiety grew palpable. Villefort, aiming to assist Dantes, assured him of his help but also cautioned him to remain silent about the letter's existence and to avoid mentioning Noirtier's name until further notice. Villefort decided to burn the letter as a gesture of goodwill and assured Dantes of his intentions to aid him. He requested Dantes to stay at his residence until evening, emphasizing the importance of silence regarding the letter and Noirtier's name, intending to manage the situation as swiftly as possible. Dantes, overwhelmed with gratitude, acknowledged Villefort's kindness and accepted his instructions, albeit feeling an escalating sense of apprehension about the potential repercussions of the situation. As Villefort promised to keep the situation discreet, a soldier escorted Dantes to a small room, and later, officers and soldiers escorted him through the streets to the shore, where they placed him in a boat and watched it drift away. Confusion and anxiety overwhelmed Dantes as the boat sailed into the unknown, leaving behind all that he cherished. He sought answers from the soldiers, identifying himself as Edmond Dantes, a seaman devoted to God and the king, desperate to know their destination. The eerie silhouette of a fortress emerged in the darkness, a foreboding prison, Château d'If, notorious for imprisoning individuals who seldom returned. Dantes speculated on the grim reputation of the prison, a place reserved for significant prisoners or enemies of the king. He recounted Villefort's assurance that he was being taken to the Château d'If, a realization that filled him with despair and disbelief. Upon arrival at the prison's shores, a soldier led him up steps and through a door, sealing him within a courtyard enclosed by towering walls. Guided by a voice, Dantes proceeded to a dim underground room appointed as his lodging for the night. Left alone, he grappled with fear and uncertainty, pondering why he found himself in such a dreadful place. The following day, a guard returned, inquiring about Dantes's condition, offering food, books, and the privilege to roam the courtyard in exchange for payment, yet denying Dantes's fervent request to meet the governor. As the days passed, Dantes remained agitated and refused to eat, pacing within the confines of his cell. The guard, attempting to console him, shared tales of another prisoner who had occupied the same cell and promised wealth to anyone willing to inform the governor of his plight. But Dantes, resolute and determined, rejected the notion of madness, yearning for an audience with the governor, a request consistently denied by the guard, who forewarned of the consequences of such persistent demands. As the days blurred into weeks, Dantes resigned himself to his underground confinement. Then, one evening, around 9 o'clock, he detected a peculiar noise emanating from the wall beside his bed. Initially, he questioned if this too was a figment of his imagination, but the sound persisted. It was followed by a peculiar thud, which was succeeded by an eerie silence. Hours later, the noise resurfaced, growing louder and more distinct. Dantes strained to discern its source, attempting to make sense of this unexpected occurrence in his desolate chamber. As Edmund toiled away in his cell, he heard a faint noise coming from the wall near his bed. Convinced that it was a fellow prisoner attempting an escape, he broke a water pot and salvaged a few sharp shards, concealing them within his bedding. The next morning, when the guard replaced the pot, he left the broken pieces undisturbed. Dantes, seizing an opportunity, began carving into the soft stone wall. He meticulously covered his progress, creating a hole big enough to reveal an obstacle, a sturdy wooden barrier obstructing further passage. His hope crumbled, lamenting his predicament. Unexpectedly, a voice from beneath the ground addressed him. "Who are you?" inquired Edmund eagerly, eliciting a cautious response from the unseen speaker known only as Number 27. Reassuring Dantes not to disclose their communication to the guards, Number 27 revealed an escape plan gone awry. Advising Edmund to halt his efforts on the wall, Number 27 assured they'd speak again the next day. He instructed Dantes to cover the hole and await further instructions. The following day, as Dantes uncovered the wall, he was met with a sudden collapse. Stones and soil gave way, revealing a man beneath, Number 27. Together, they evaluated their confinement, contemplating escape routes against the prison's unyielding walls. Their conversation revealed a window as a potential path to freedom, prompting Number 27 to test its barriers and quickly retract. It was a glimmer of hope in the darkness of their imprisonment, but also a reminder of the formidable challenges that lay ahead. Faria and Dantes traversed the hidden passageway and entered Faria's chamber, a space born from perseverance and intellect. In their discussions, Faria imparted wisdom and knowledge, fostering Dantes' intellectual growth. Despite their confinement, Dantes found solace in learning under Faria's guidance, absorbing history, language, and numerous other subjects. However, the joy of their shared learning was shadowed by Faria's deteriorating health. One day, while Dantes worked on their secret passage, Faria's distress echoed through the walls. Rushing to Faria's side, Dantes found the older man in agony, his face pallid and drawn. Faria disclosed his grave ailment, revealing a pre-existing illness worsened by their imprisonment. Instructing Dantes to retrieve a small vial of red liquid hidden beneath his bed, Faria's condition grew dire. With urgency, Dantes swiftly assisted Faria back to his room and tended to him, providing comfort in his time of suffering. As the hours passed, Faria's condition worsened, his body growing cold and weak, and Dante's remained by his side, offering solace in their confined world. Faria, in a fragile state, shared a piece of paper with Dante's, its content cryptic due to partial burning. Faria disclosed the origin of this paper, recounting his connection to Prince Spada, a once wealthy family. Prince Spada's lineage, renowned for its riches, faced a decline. He narrated the tale of another Spada, who lived during the era of Cesare Borgia. Cesare Borgia, in need of funds for his wars, sought the wealth of Rosigliosi and Spada. While Rosigliosi welcomed the dinner invitation with delight, Spada, perceiving danger, wrote a note before attending. Suspecting poison in his wine, Spada drank and perished. Borgia claimed all documents, including Spada's last letter, bequeathing everything to his brother's child and emphasizing the significance of a prayer book with gold corners, holding the key to the hidden treasure. Years passed, and the search for the Spada treasure persisted. Faria, inheriting Spada's possessions, including the fabled prayer book, continued the quest. Despite thorough exploration of family records and the Borgia history, the treasure's location remained elusive. In an event preceding his imprisonment, while examining papers, Faria discovered a surprising secret within the prayer book. He inadvertently revealed hidden text, visible only when heated. However, the critical piece had partially burned, and Faria shared the last legible segment with Dante's. He then presented Dante's with another piece, showing fragmented lines of writing. Combining both segments revealed a message dated May 25, 1498, detailing Cesare Borgia's invitation to dinner, his intent to kill Spada, and a directive to bequeath everything to Guido Spada upon Spada's death. Dante's, now privy to this historical revelation, held in his hands the remnants of a treasure hunt, shrouded in intrigue and mystery, with implications that might change their fates. As days passed, Faria imparted knowledge about the hidden treasure, discussing escape plans with Dante's, whom he saw as a son born to him within the confines of the prison. Their relationship deepened, and Faria expressed his gratitude, offering half of the treasure if they ever escaped together and all of it to Dante's if he passed away in prison. Yet, Dante's, touched by Faria's teachings and wisdom, considered the elderly man's guidance as a treasure in itself, valuing his mentorship more than the promised wealth. Despite their careful planning, Dante's held a belief that they would never leave the prison. He cherished Faria's wisdom and knowledge, considering those teachings as his true treasure. One night, Dante's woke abruptly to Faria's faint voice calling his name through the darkness. Rushing to Faria's room through the secret path, Dante's found the old man in intense pain. Faria acknowledged that his time had come and there was no hope left. However, he urged Dante's to try to save his life with the remaining red liquid from the bottle. Dante's, eager to help, followed Faria's instructions, hoping against hope for a miracle. But despite his efforts, Faria's condition didn't improve. In a final act of desperation, Faria urged Dante's to pour the rest of the liquid into his mouth. Knowing the end was near, Faria blessed Dante's, expressing gratitude for their friendship and urging him to go to Monte Cristo, retrieve the treasure, and live a life of joy with it if he managed to escape. Faria's last words were a farewell, sending his blessings and good wishes with Dante's. Dante's, finding himself alone in the room with Faria's body, conceived a daring plan. He removed his clothes, concealed them, and then placed Faria's body in his bed, covering it with blankets. He kissed Faria's cold face and turned it away before returning to Faria's room. Using Faria's knife, he opened the bag and carefully placed the body on his own bed, draping the bedclothes over the head. Dante's then got inside the bag, mimicking the posture of a dead body. He formulated a risky strategy, ready to escape if discovered by cutting open the bag and fleeing. However, he also contemplated the possibility of being placed in the grave, hoping it wouldn't be too deep and that he could find a way out once alone. As the hours passed, he anticipated the arrival of the evening meal, but the prison remained silent. Finally, footsteps approached, signaling the guard's arrival. When the door opened, two shadows entered, discussing the weight of the body and the necessity of tying it. Dante's, hidden inside the bag, could overhear their conversation, puzzling over their intentions. The men placed the body on a piece of wood and carried it up some steps, entering the fresh night air. The scenario was confusing for Dante's. He questioned his whereabouts and the men's actions, unsure of the unfolding events. Edmund overheard a man placing a heavy object and then tying it to Dante's feet. Dante's heard the waves crashing against rocks, and one of the men reminded the other about a previous incident with the governor. They lifted Dante's, counted, and threw him into the air. He fell into the water with a heavy weight dragging him down. He realized he was in the sea with a stone tied to his feet, feeling like he was in the depths of the ocean. Edmund Dante's, clever and composed, managed to free himself by cutting the stone tied to him. He swam to the surface, avoiding the guards, and emerged far from the prison. Facing a stormy sky and the vast black sea in front of him, the Chateau d'If loomed ominously behind. The place where Dante's found himself was huge and frightening. The rocks around seemed like they wanted to drag him back. Two men with a lamp noticed him, and Dante's feared being heard, so he stayed underwater for a while. When he resurfaced, he couldn't see the light and swam out to sea. He swam for hours, aiming for an island, worried about the consequences back at the prison. Cold, hungry, and desperate, he prayed for help. Spotting a ship, he called out, but he was too weak. Fortunately, men from the ship rescued him when he was nearly drowning. Later, Dante's woke up on the ship and wondered where they were going. The captain explained they were leaving the Chateau d'If behind. The captain offered him work on the ship, and Dante's agreed. The ship, named the Young Amelia, traded goods secretly to avoid government fees. Dante's appearance had changed a lot since his time in prison. He bought new clothes, feeling like a stranger to himself. The ship's crew worked hard for the captain, and they quickly sailed away to Corsica after a brief stop in Livorno. Edmund felt joy on the open sea. He dreamed of this freedom in prison. The captain discovered Monte Cristo Island. Edmund thought of swimming there but realized he needed help to retrieve the treasure. He pondered over the reality of the treasure and recalled the Prince Spada's letter. One evening, they discussed a plan to meet a Turkish ship secretly. They chose Monte Cristo Island for their deal due to its isolation. The next night, they headed there. By luck, Dantes reached Monte Cristo. He questioned Jacques, his rescuer, but didn't reveal much about the treasure. The next morning, he explored the island, seeking clues left by Spada. He found an opening, revealing a hidden room. He uncovered a chest marked with the Spada family emblem. Inside were gold coins, bars, and rings. Overwhelmed, he hid some treasure, concealing the rest, and covered his tracks. After days alone with the treasure, the ship returned. Edmund hid his leg injury but revealed little about the treasure. They encountered trouble with a government ship near Marseille. Edmund's friends rescued him and took him back to Monte Cristo on the ship. In Livorno, he sold some treasure to a shopkeeper, pretending it was from an inheritance. He left the ship, offering gifts to his friends. Later, in Genoa, he bought a small, fast boat and made secret alterations to it. Returning to Monte Cristo, he moved the treasure to his boat. In Marseille, posing as a wealthy count, he easily cleared customs. He encountered an old sailor but remained unrecognized. Walking through Marseille, he passed his old home where a dying man awaited someone's arrival. Entering the house, he was recognized by a woman and approached the dying man, who recognized him too. They shared a heartfelt moment before the man passed away. Later, people discussed rumors about Napoleon's return, while Edmund lived in seclusion, now known as the rich Count of Monte Cristo.